Canada and my Chernobyl, which is probably what this documentary is going to get called when David Attenborough finally gets here, or at least sends me his camera crew. I had this idea that he could be at home in his chair, co creating and helping from his side of the planet, or his comfortable space being that he's 100 and is allowed to go at whatever rate he's comfortable at. Uh, I need to get somebody who's got all of that experience to oversee my work so I can be approved for funding uh, from places like the National Film Board of Canada, and then find additional bursaries and grants to finish my work within a documented time. So that's one of the reasons I'm here at the Stanley Park reviewing things from the past, from my childhood and what my life has been like growing up in Canada, on this territory and in water. I am a land lover and an animal lover, a water lover. Like, I just love nature. I love earth. I love God. I love what God's created. And I'm not okay with people who think they're being better or smarter than God, or people taking care of animals and nature responsibly because of something that is not in the animal's control, that is out of its control. So I want to share my perspective of what it was like growing up with all these beautiful things that God allowed me to have and enjoy. So I got to go everywhere and see everything from Wonderland to SeaWorld out in Victoria. Um, there were such huge crowds all the way around the SeaWorld area when they were putting on the whale shows. And the kids all got asked to put their arms up to see who would get picked to come and feed the whale. And I was that lucky girl. And I'll never forget the experience of what it was like to be chosen out of that entire crowd to be the one to get to feed the whale with the trainer and the person that has fun playing with the animals, which is something I would have always loved to been able to do. And it's something I do. I have to confess that growing up in the Pan Am Olympic pool, I got spoiled. I had the best pool in the country as a training ground for underwater swimming, holding your breath, for scuba training if they were doing it right. And I got to swim at the bottom, and my imagination would just go crazy that I'm swimming with the fish. I'm swimming with the stingrays. And so I know that these animals, in a way, have all been able to pick up and be in tune with me all of my life. Call it a gift if you want, but it is what it is. They know me, they're aware of me on land and in water, and I value that. And I want to get a point across about how much it mattered that I got to go to marine land, how much I got to enjoy going to the zoos, and in other outdoor child activities that were held in parks that were beautiful in places all over Canada. It was all so alive and healthy, and I never saw anything bad or negative. I never felt or experienced anything wrong. I never felt any guilt or burden or think, oh, this shouldn't be happening, we shouldn't do this and change it. When an animal is rescued or abandoned by its parent, gives birth, and it doesn't want the baby, and it's cared for by us, and it knows nothing about the wilderness or wildlife, you cannot just release it back into those conditions. It's inhumane to them. They know nothing else. When they come to know our love, and we love and care for them like they're a pet or a part of our family, they get to used to that kind of love. And there's nothing wrong with them knowing what that kind of love is like, and then choosing to be a gentler giant of whatever animal species they are. And so I don't have a problem with beautiful sanctuaries like this in parks like Stanley Park, giving animals that can no longer live in your home, in your backyard, like a cat or a dog because they've outgrown you in your space, and let them live someplace safe like this, where they can still see people around that care and that they're cared for and that they're in a safe space that's a decent size. And so, in my opinion, it's okay to revitalize and fix places like this back up and use it for things that help avoid animals from being killed that are coming in out of the forests to go into our Subway restaurants when nobody's in there and help themselves to the food that's behind the counter, because we have crossed the line and the barriers between their space and their home and their rights and ours. This way, they don't have to get killed by our conservation officers, our forest rangers, who call themselves conservationists, but they're killing innocent animals that are just trying to survive, that are hungry like we are. So it's better that they get to live and be cared for like this and feel safe, and we feel safe, rather than people getting afraid of an animal that essentially is not going to attack you unless you make them feel afraid of you, unless you give them a reason to. And so I get upset about people who think that they're doing something more or better because of shutting places like this down, thinking that it's cruel to the animal and we shouldn't do it. But when you're impregnating animals like horses, for instance, and they've never had love with another horse, and all of a sudden they pop out this baby 300 and some odd days later, that's going to freak you out. You don't have to accept that child and raise it and be its mother. And so when you're doing things that's messing with God's nature, you're going to get outcomes where you're going to have to live with the consequences of that, like as humans that are trying to play science or play God. But if God has allowed us to be able to do this and do this with our hearts from love, then if God didn't say, no, you can't do that, this is a bad idea, then we should probably follow his guiding light in understanding that God isn't saying we can't live in peace with these animals that need our care, that have known our love, and unify with what we have to work with to make it possible for all of us to live. So that's what I have to say about this video and my purpose of being around this section of the aquarium and abandoned. When I was here as a kid, this place was thriving, alive. All stuff was going on. I'm here today in honor of Donnelly Rhodes, who played Doc Roberts in the TV show Danger Bay, which I loved, and I'd like to do a remake of after I get my Bridge Watch course done and call it Baywatch, which I won't get into. But that's part of the documentary, is that I remember when everything was alive. Alive, alive, oh, which could be another special episode with the string of documentary episodes that I could be making with the help of David Attenborough, or at least his film crew team, because everything was alive. I'm just going to close on this. The fact that when I was a child, I grew up in swamps. I was that kid that would climb trees, scrape her knees, step on nails on boards, and constantly have to go and get tetanus shots. I'm the one that would learn how to put live worms and live minnows on her fishing hook and go sit and fish in murky water, Assiniboine water, river and Red River, and catch catfish, and not worry about whether the water was a little bit dirty, because the city isn't cleaning it, dredging the bottom of it, not because the water was actually super polluted or something. And yeah, just live and have fun. I remember cankerworms, butterflies, caterpillars. I remember bulrushes. I remember frogs and tadpoles and lily pads and dragonflies, fireflies. But everything was alive. I even had field mice. There was large lots of empty land that we could run through from place to place. Open areas that were not fenced off. And there wasn't additional unnecessary properties of these row housing or identical blocks of homes that were structured architecturally to look the same. And they call it suburban living. There was nothing wrong with loving nature in its natural state. And now when I go out on these hikes and I'm rediscovering stuff years later, all of these things I had were gone. So this is what I'm trying to share in my documenting what's going on, about why I call this my Chernobyl, because in my opinion, this forest, this nature, the animals, they have every right to take back their house. I'm on their side. I'm for them, supporting how we stop these buildings from continuing to be built. These bird killers, right, where birds are now sitting on wires because they don't have tall enough ancient trees to live in and lay nests and raise children. And it's disturbing our ecosystem, our equilibrium. When the sky trains were built, they were built to be going through the rainforest and undisturb this peace, this environment, and live with nature, not hurt its nature. And that's why they're built on ground level and not digging into it. And now you've got these people coming from outside and wanting to make money and buying land in the format in which law allows them, and then they're building up as much as they can to maximize their money. But it's ruining the balance even of our temperatures. If there's too much tall building blocking sun, then we don't get the natural heat and temperatures we should have. So I'm all for stopping the construction and even using these tall buildings to blow up in a movie and bringing them down and reforesting and restructuring the housing and our nature and its system back to what it should be, and learning to build a future that we can actually have and give our future descendants by doing things the right way together and not about doing it for greed. I mean, that doesn't create an improved economy. That destroys the economy. And in the end, it destroys the world, or at least it destroys us, because nature has always proven itself, like in Chernobyl, it will just take itself back. So that's where I'll end and keep going with my little short videos. So keep watching as I figure out where I'm going now. I found a building, so I'm going to go do a quick wash and break and then see where the rest of the aquarium stuff is and what it was like when I was last here and what it's like now. So thanks for watching. Bye. No, the enclosure I just showed you, my friend, those are all abandoned. So yeah, bye.